So I've had this watch for almost a year now, so I thought it was worth just doing an update on it. I've got a very long, detailed review in my channel, which I'll link below, so I'm not going to go through all the elements and thoughts about this watch. This is literally, after a year, what are my thoughts on it? What are the kind of things that stick with me, and is it something I'll keep? So we'll go through the good, the bad, and then just my overall thoughts. So I still absolutely love the way the watch looks. I love the bezel, I love the dial, I love the aesthetic of it. I love the fact that it is quite versatile, that you can wear it out for dinner, that you can wear it on holiday. All the things that are quite cliche, but they are ultimately what make this watch, for me, a very, very cool and nice looking watch. I do like the clasp. I have some negatives about the clasp as well. I have a 7-inch wrist, so as you can see, it's nowhere near too long for my wrist. It's a really good size. My wrist is kind of oval shaped as well, so that does help. But on my 7-inch wrist, the watch looks absolutely fantastic, and the clasp doesn't give me any issues at all. I saw a recent video with someone saying that this element here was quite sharp, but I think if you've got a smaller wrist and it sticks out more, I can understand how that would be a problem. But for me, you can see it kind of rests against my wrist and against the bracelet, therefore it's not an issue on my wrist. The weight and the comfort while it's on my wrist. So this is 107 grams, again, size to my 7-inch wrist, which is, it's so comfortable. It's, the way I think of a watch as being comfortable is if you forget it's on your wrist. You walk around, not literally forget obviously, but the weight, it just kind of disappears on your wrist. And at 107 grams, it absolutely does that. So it's an extremely comfortable watch to have on. Ease of removing scratches is another really nice thing about it being titanium. I know lots of people don't like titanium. I've just mentioned the weight. That's one of the reasons I do like titanium. I also like the colour and the aesthetic of the titanium, being a darker grey compared to steel. It's a bit more discreet, but overall, yeah, I absolutely love it. I know some people don't like it because of the lack of weight. It is a bit of an odd thing. It can take a while to get used to, but that is one of the things that I really like about it. The other thing about it being titanium is the ease of removing scratches from it. So I use 3M Scotch-Brite pads. I personally use the grey one. It's the highest grit pretty much. So it gives you a very fine finish on the links compared to some of the other lower grit offerings from 3M. It does help to have the Scotch-Brite pad used a few times, so it's a little bit softer, because when you first get it, it's quite coarse and the finish is a bit deeper into the metal itself, but when it softens up, you get a really nice fine grain smooth finish on the links. And I have actually refinished a couple of the links where they've taken some knocks, and I think it works really, really well. And I've tried refinishing steel watches in a similar way in the past, and it just doesn't look quite as good. You have to apply more pressure or go over it and take a lot longer to do it more softly. With titanium, it's a lot easier to do, and it pretty much looks factory, as long as you take your time and do it properly and make sure you brush with the grain from factory when it came out. So yeah, it's a lot easier to refinish than steel. That's a real positive for me. Also, I haven't noticed it scratching any more than any of my steel watches. So people talk about titanium being softer, and it is softer, there's no doubt about that, and it is more of a scratch magnet than steel. I am quite careful with my watches, as you'll see. It's worn very well. I've had to refinish, I think, 2 links where they took some scratches, but if you put it under a torch, right, so don't ever do this if you're worried about how your watch looks, but if you just put it under a torch or even the light of your phone, you'll see all the micro scratches that are on there that aren't visible in daylight. So if you look at this watch now, it looks absolutely pristine, okay? There are some small marks where the links rub against each other and stuff, but as soon as you put it under a torch, you see all the micro scratches that you can't see now. So I don't care about those, but when you get a really big visible dink or scratch, not dink, that bugs me. So they're the ones that I do finish out. But ultimately, yeah, I haven't noticed this getting any more or less scratches than any of my stainless steel watches. I know a lot of people worry about that. I would say don't. It makes no difference. The blessing with this over steel is, as I say, you can actually refinish it a lot more easily. I still love the bezel. And I also saw someone recently so they couldn't feel the extra detent at 12 o'clock. I can absolutely feel that on mine. I don't know if that's an issue with the way that bezel's been put on the watch, but I can absolutely feel that detent on mine. What else? The movement accuracy. So last time I timed the watch, I ran it for 20 days and wearing it on my wrist and then leaving it in a particular position overnight, which is ever so slightly backwards. It ran at 0.03 seconds per day, which is just incredible. All my Tudor movements, well, I will give them credit for this because there's lots of stuff we'll go into in a minute. All my Tudor watch movements have been extraordinarily accurate. You have to kind of play with the positions overnight and time it, but they've been so accurate, which is a really nice thing because obviously you don't have to change the watches often. I love the simplicity of the dial with the red text on it. It really does need that tiny bit of colour, and it's such a small detail, but it does make such a big difference to the watch. I still think we'll come on to the text on the negatives, I guess, but yeah, I love the clean aesthetic of the dial. Where else are we? Versatility. I've talked about versatility already. I just think with the way they finished the bezel and with the sunburst effect on the dial, I just think it's such a nice watch. It really can be a one watch collection for someone if you're looking. You might want something a bit shinier, but you could have this as your first and only watch. So yeah, that's all the good stuff. Let's come on to the bad stuff. So I'm going to break this up into quality control, then my thoughts. So I'll insert a couple of pictures, but ultimately it's not acceptable. So the end links, well, there you go. You can even see it there, but I'll put pictures in. There's way too much movement there. Mine is one of the early watches. I'm hoping they fix that. If I ever send it off for warranty work or for servicing, I'll see if I can get some better fitting end links. But you should not be able to see daylight through, there you go. You should not be able to see daylight through that. That is really poor. Tudor, honestly. And then the other thing, which isn't as bad, but once seen can't be unseen, is there's a small blemish on the dial above the O of the Pelagos, and you can only see it in certain lights. But once you've seen it, you know it's there, and it just shouldn't be there. It shouldn't. It's so irritating. And obviously, being watch geeks, we get the loops, we look at it, we could put the watch in certain lights and angles to look at the raised plots. To look at the sunburst effect, to look at the details on the watch. So when you do see something like that, it is extraordinarily irritating. So yeah, the only other thing I'll say is the loom on my hands isn't as strong as the loom plots and on the bezel. And I know they use a different material. You've clearly got solid loom blocks on the dial, and I think that might be something similar in the bezel itself. But the hands aren't. They must be filled with the material as opposed to blocks of material. So it is a bit irritating. It's nowhere near as bad as other people's. They're actually quite close, but it is noticeable. So it doesn't bother me that much. But if mine was as bad as other people's I've seen, that would be a big problem for me. And I would be sending it back to get new hands. So yeah, it is what it is. Luckily, mine's not too bad. My thoughts, I don't think you need a dive extension. I think it's a waste of time. If you're going to go diving with one of their options or offerings, you'd have the Pelagos 42, not the Pelagos 39. I would much rather a smaller clasp or additional micro adjustment points. For me, it is just a waste, especially with how they're marketing this watch. They're marketing this watch as a more fashionable watch than an actual diving watch. So having that dive extension is just a waste. For me, I would much rather they made the class smaller so it could fit smaller people's wrists, and offered half links. I know Uncle Seiko offer half links, but to get the perfect fit, I'm quite fortunate that I can get the perfect fit with this watch, but I know lots of people still can't, because it's basically one link worth of micro adjust, which isn't enough because you'd add or take out a link to get the right fit as it is. So having a link of micro adjust doesn't help the majority of people. So I would shrink the clasp. I would make the micro adjust 1 millimeter as opposed to almost 2 millimeters. And I'd add half links to 2 half links, and then you'll always be able to get the perfect fit for any size wrist. Why Tudor don't do these things? It's such a basic and obvious thing to do. I just don't know. I think that's kind of the main gripe for me. I like the look of it, especially over the older clasps. I like the ceramic ball bearings on it and so on and so forth. Again, I won't go into all details. I've done that in another video. But yeah, I think it's a bit of a missed opportunity there, and maybe something they'll rectify. Half links are such an obvious and cheapish thing to do, I would have thought. The only other thing that really bugs me is that if you're going to give a watch on multiple straps, why not make it an easy change bracelet and strap? So I've got that on my Zenith. I appreciate it's a more expensive watch, but you have these systems on far cheaper watches. A lot of people don't have the right tools to change the straps over, and if they do, there's the risk of them butchering the watch. I accidentally, when I was doing it on my 58, I accidentally popped a spring bar at the top of the lug twice, and it took a chunk out the lug, and I had to go and get it refinished by a professional watchmaker. A lot of people won't even have the tools to do it. Obviously, I've got a lot better at it now, and I can do it, and I use lots of tape and etc. But if you just had an easy, quick system, easy, quick change system, that's what there should be if you're going to offer multiple straps with a watch. It makes no sense to me to give multiple straps and then expect people to change it themselves, or take it to an authorised dealer to have it changed. It's just stupid. So as it is, I don't really change mine. I'm not a fan of the rubber strap at all, to be honest with you. I don't find it very comfortable. I find it quite rigid. I don't think it looks that nice on the watch either. I definitely prefer the bracelet, so my watch just stays on the bracelet. I do think there could have been less text. I know Tudor get hammered for the amount of text they have on their dials. I do think there could have been less text. I don't think it needs the chronometer on it or officially certified. If you just had Pelagos and a depth rating, and then the Shield and Tudor at the top, and got rid of Geneve, I think that would be a really nice balance to the dial, and it would just make it less text heavy. It's not the 5 lines that you had in other watches, but I still don't think you need all that on there. And if you're that bothered about it, put it on the back of the case, right? I mean, you've got plenty on there. There's plenty of space, and you don't do anything with it. So that's where I would put that. Overall, I still really love the watch. It's, like I said, it's a very versatile watch. If you're going away, you can take it, you can wear it for everything. I do like the fact it's got micro adjustment, even though I think it'd be better implemented. I like the redesigned clasp. I like how it looks. I just think it's an absolute winner for me. Of all the Tudors in their catalogue, of all the Tudors that I've owned, this is the only Tudor that I've kept, and it's the only Tudor, even in the existing catalogue with the new releases, that I would want. If they did it in blue, I would like that as well. I won't buy it, but I would like it. But yeah, for me, at the moment, it's a keeper at the moment. We will have to see what happens in the future, but I do absolutely love it. As always, if you have any questions, let me know.